The METUS Tech Show.
Welcome to the METUS Tech Show, a show for HVAC professionals by HVAC professionals.
The METUS Tech Show.
Mitsubishi.
So I understand you're a sailor.
Oh yeah. No, I've that's right. I'm a small boat sailor. I've been sailing, small craft. I think since I was, or thrown onto small craft, anyways. Like less than 18 feet, probably from the time I was 5.
Oh wow!
And I was involved in a Hobie Cat fleet early on up in Maine, lake sailing back in the 80s, and so even as a teenager, I was racing Hobie Cats, and it was pretty exciting. Those are little catamarans, and so I still have, an 18-foot Hobie Cat from that day, from that era, and it's an 83 vintage. And so, it's a little long in the tooth, but man, I can still fly, Hull. It's a good time in the middle of the
So there's
summer.
more to it than just dropping the sail.
Yeah, well,
Right.
See, that's my version of sailing.
Yeah, no, you can really haul on one, and it's interesting. I mean, I think that small boat sailing is really, at least in the areas that I'm hanging out, it's dropped in popularity a lot. I think there's a lot more people out powerboating, but when you're in the middle of the lake and you got nothing but your wits and the wind, there's a real charge to it.
So I know nothing about sailing, but what happens when there is no wind?
You paddle.
Paddle. So you need a paddle.
Or you kind of pull your rudder up halfway and you kind of paddle it back and forth and kind of scull along.
Has that happened?
How
to
fast
you?
does that go?
Pretty slow, and and hopefully you've got some good beverages on board.
There you go.
But of course with like a sunfish or something, I like really small boats, so that, I'm like right in it. It's like being really connected to the wind and the water, and so like sailing around on a sunfish, super fun in the summer. Just
Is this something you can do in the ocean too? Is it strictly
yeah,
freshwater?
exactly. I was going to ask there.
Yeah, no, I live up in Portland, Maine, and so there's a whole lot of ocean water around. But and you definitely can do small boat sailing and racing.
But that'd be more bumpy more than anything else, right?
It's it's some tricky water, and there'll be sharks. So,
No, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm out.
No, you scare easy. Man-eating sharks. Okay. Anyway, welcome to the METUS Tech Show. I am Paul Schaub, Senior Training Manager with METUS. With me, Juan.
Juan Cardona. I'm the technical instructor at our Ohio Training Center.
All right. We also have Scott.
Scott Tallman, technical instructor at Aswani.
And joining us today is a special guest, Dana Fisher. Dana, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do for
Yeah,
METUS.
thanks, Paul. I've been with Mitsubishi Electric for a little over 5 years, and I have the great privilege of being the director of regulatory strategy and helping with all things kind of long-term planning around regulatory and codes.
Wow, you have to work with the government. I'm sorry.
Well, I've got some background in that, so it's like we're from the government. We're here to help.
All right. So, yeah, okay.
Scariest words someone can hear.
Well, use of those words.
Yeah. So, depending on where you are in the country, there are a lot of incentives and rebates out there that benefit the homeowner, the contractor. But one thing that happened last August is Congress passed the IRA, Inflation Reduction Act, and we had our CEO on several episodes ago. I don't recall exactly when, and he gave us kind of a high-level view of that.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk a little bit about that and get some updates. But before we get to that, Dana, there's some refrigerant changes coming down the pike for us. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, this is definitely one of those things that is front of mind for regulatory concerns. And so, pretty much we're going to be transitioning, the entire U.S., all the heat pumps are going to be transitioning away from using 410A for residential equipment in the beginning of 2025 and for VRF equipment at the beginning of 2026. And so it's still a little ways off, but really the equipment that's going to be using the new A2L refrigerants are going to start showing up about a year from now. Maybe, not this summer, next summer kind of thing is when they're going to start showing up. And, it's like pretty much all the HVAC equipment that's going to comply with the newer, lower global warming potential criteria being below 750, where 410A is a little bit above 2000.
2000, yeah.
So it's a dramatic reduction, like almost a 2/3 reduction in the impact on global warming for release of refrigerants. But that comes with the fact that the new category of refrigerants that are able to do this are A2Ls. So they're categorized as lightly flammable.
That's okay.
But they're really lightly flammable, as in like it's hard to get them to ignite, but quite difficult. But that being said, there's a whole lot of work going into setting up the codes and criteria around appropriate installation and the manufacturer safeties that have to be put in place. And so a factory and everybody is actively working on the design of those systems to make sure that we have the sensors in the appropriate places to make sure that, like, if there's any sensing of leaking anywhere at any point for any circumstance, that, all the different remedies that are allowed under code are undertaken to ensure no risk whatsoever. So, it's not something to be alarmed about, but we're all going to be transitioning to this, and it's all going to happen, within the next 18 months.
Well, you nailed it on the head, right? A2L, flammable, and that's what everyone's just going to hear in their mind.
Yeah.
And freak out.
Yeah, no, and I mean, like, I know that it seems really new to us as we're transitioning that way, and people are like, what does this mean? I mean, like, really, one of the most important things to keep in mind is that it really, like, will you be able to retrofit systems with A2Ls? No. If you're installing something that's 410A now, it's going to always be using 410A.
Somebody's going to make it a drop-in replacement
we know
with
that's gonna
A2Ls.
Yeah, well, and I mean, like, 410A is going to continue to be available, for some extended period of time for servicing purposes, and there's going to be reclaimed 410A too. But once we get to that transition, you're going to be selling, and there's going to be a sell-through period for at least a year after that date for equipment that's already manufactured prior to the date. So there's a whole bunch of different provisions there, but we'll get to the other side.
Right.
And we'll make sure that everybody's perfectly informed on what's involved.
Yeah.
And it's
I
still,
hear a lot. I'm
this
sorry.
is still all a learning curve, right? With all this.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, a lot
code
of
being still written.
I mean, like, states are still passing the codes. AHRI is on this massive campaign right now to go and get all the codes updated at all the states. More than 18 states are already completely through the process, whether through legislative or code, to get it adopted. And they're ticking off all the going through the checklist of all the different states to approach them to make sure that they're ready with their code and standards in time. So.
Okay.
It's all hands on deck. People are on it.
Have we as an industry or us as a manufacturer landed on a specific refrigerant yet?
It's going to either be, just broadly across the entire HVAC industry, it's going to be either R32 or 454B.
Or 454B, yeah.
Yeah, so
Which are used in other parts of the world. It's not like it's something new.
And that's a great point. I mean, like, Europe has been using A2Ls forever.
Right.
I mean, like, it's like, this is not new technology. And in some ways, a lot of the steps that are being taken in U.S. code are significantly more rigorous than in other places. And it's never been a problem.
Right. It hasn't been a problem because you're right. Scott's point is people are going to hear flammable, and that's all they're going to stop
and
there.
that's what I was going to say. It's not as critical as what the industry may make it out to be. I mean, I'm hearing people blowing up and insurance industry up in arms because they're going to have to rewrite policies.
No, there's
but
none
it's
of
going to
that.
be none of that.
It's the limits of flammability are going to be very hard to hit, where it's going to get the right amount of gas to the oxygen and everything else. It's going to be very hard. So, and it's nothing new. It's been used for decades in Europe.
Yeah, it really won't be a big deal. And frankly, it's a good workup to what's probably coming by the end of the decade. There's a big push towards even significantly lower global warming potential refrigerants, and that's probably propane,
right? Exactly. But I was going to go since you said that. Well, R32 GWP. That number is roughly, where did I see
That's
that?
just under
675.
Yep.
Which, if they do a further reduction down the line, I don't know if they will.
Yeah,
because our number is 750 now, right?
There's still yes, that's exactly right. So I mean, like, pretty much if they do a reduction, Europe is moving towards a reduction to a GWP of 150, and so the only way to get to that is is to really have a higher, is to have a higher prevalence of 1, 2, 3, 4 YF in the mix of the refrigerant, or to transition to A2s. Like propane, like we're talking about. So I don't know how far down the road that kind of thing is, but of course all the safety provisions would have to be in place. And
propane is also another refrigerant that's been used in Europe for quite a while.
Yes.
Totally, yeah. In fact, my understanding is worldwide, globally, Mitsubishi's the leading manufacturer of propane.
Oh wow!
Really,
I did not know that.
So we
interesting.
We have the technology. They're working on it to adapt it to the different kinds of things that we're doing. We'll probably see the first iterations of some of that propane stuff show up in sort of monoblock, in air to water kind of activities. That's sort of like the key starting point for that. But that's still some time off.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, then that's what happens in our industry. Where there's a new refrigerant, it's like you hear about it years before anything actually happens.
Yeah, we're gonna spend some time focusing on A2Ls, and everybody should just get ready for that transition to happen.
Well, everything changes there, right? New tools. I mean, more.
Just keep calm. It's gonna work. Don't panic.
Yeah, no big deal.
When we went from R22 to 410A, it was a big deal, and a lot of stuff came out. There was misinformation. We had to do this, and it happens in our industry. I still miss R11, so that's how old I am. All right, so let's talk about the IRA. So Congress passed and the president signed last August. I think it was the Inflation Reduction Act. So tell us about that.
And if you didn't get a chance to catch up with Mark Kuntz' podcast, that he goes through the whole thing really in great detail. And really, I just want to provide some updates to that piece. There's sort of two parts that are most connected to our industry. One are the state rebates that everybody kind of talks about a lot because it's big dollar values that are included in the law. Like up to $8,000 for homeowners on heat pumps, and with a cap of $14,000 once you get through all the different measures, including upgrading panels to 200 amps. So, but the rebate programs go through the state energy offices. And so the states are waiting for DOE to issue final guidance on how they set up those programs, what kind of activities they have to do to verify income levels. We're expecting that probably in the next month or so. And then the states have to formulate their plans and get funds to, hire staff to get these programs launched. And so some states may be able to launch as soon as September, October timeframe, October or something like that.
That's aggressive, yeah.
That's going to be very aggressive, and really for a limited number of states that already have robust programs and really geared up energy offices like Massachusetts, for example. But for most states, we're not really anticipating them to be able to light up their programs until Q1 of 2024. And, what those programs end up looking like might be similar to what's in the law, but frankly, the states are going to have an awful lot of latitude. And we're Mitsubishi, the utility team, we're going to be monitoring what's going on in all those states and getting that out to our teams in every state so that we can make sure that Heat Pump Nation, all the Mitsubishi contractors out there, are totally geared up and ready to take advantage of those rebate programs and benefit their communities.
All right, so those rebates will take a while. It was a few months anyway at best, and for some states it could be even a lot further down the road for that. So what incentives are there now that a homeowner can take advantage of now?
So that and that's really that's the big news is the 25C tax credits that were extended and expanded under IRA. They're active now. They're available for anything that was a qualifying piece of equipment that was installed during since January 1st, 2023. So there's been a big scramble across the industry to get through the ratings process with transitioning to M1 ratings and get list posted. And that's continuing. There's really been a Herculean effort to transition all the databases over. So we're working really hard on that, and we hope to have all of our finalized lists updated in coming weeks in the next couple of months. We have the largest array of different products that are going to qualify for the 25C tax credits, which are 30% up to $2,000 in a given year for the products that are installed that qualify. And so like contractors out there that are like, what does this mean to me? How do I make this happen? That should be part of every single conversation that you have at the kitchen table with people. Yeah. And so, like in a strategy on, obviously any qualifying equipment, whether it's, a small or a large system, great. They're going to get that, 30% up to $2,000. But if you think about that, the math on that a little bit, pretty much any project that's less than something like $6,700 is going to get 30% off. Wow. That's a big deal.
That is a big number.
So, if you're able to put in a one-to-one system for $5,000, that homeowner's going to get $1,500 off. Wow. And that's before you even get to the state incentives. So I just think that the market for one-to-ones is going to explode, and that the contractors out there should really, contemplate right away setting up squads that are totally geared up to put in a couple of one-to-one systems every day to just completely take advantage of that program.
So is this only a one-time deal, or say the homeowner has a second home? Could that?
It has to be a residence for the homeowner. So it can be a second home, but it has to be qualified as a residence. It can't be something that they rent out to people generally. So, right. And there is, if you Google IRA, IRS 25C guidance, there's a great multi-page, few pages from the IRS specifically about this that get into all the nitty-gritty and talk about what qualifies and doesn't. Okay. And can be very helpful. We're not tax professionals here, but you can find those resources pretty easily. And of course, we have a great IRA website that gets into the details.
Right. So the rebates are going to be the qualifications that the homeowner or the end user has to meet. But for these tax credits, they're available to anybody.
So it's homeowners have to have a tax liability. So you have to be have sufficient income where you would owe whatever amount of up to that $2,000 tax credit that you'd be able to receive back. And it's for every given year. There's no total limit on what you can accomplish, over the course of the 10 years that this tax credit's been extended. So if you install qualifying equipment during any given calendar year, tax year, you'd be able to claim that as a tax credit on when you file taxes for that year. And then if you install additional equipment in a later year, you'd be able to receive an equivalent tax credit, for any eligible expenditures during that tax year. So somebody could put in a one-to-one one year and put in a one-to-one another year and be able to get 30% up to $22,000 on each one of those. And it's also applicable to, heat pump water heaters and a couple of other products. And that $2,000 is a separate bucket from a cap of up to $1,200 on more conventional energy tax credit measures like windows and doors and panel upgrades. So, you can get $600, 30% up to $600 on any one of those other items, up to $1,200. And that's separate and can be in addition to the 30% up to $2,000. So a 25C tax credit people could tap it out at $3,200 in any given year during that period.
Wow, that's yeah. I think I'm going to put a system in December and then another one in January.
Good plan, man. That's good.
So Dana, talking about the rebates and this IRA program, what products do we have on hand that will qualify for this?
Yeah, no, inventory has been a serious struggle the last few years just with the supply chain and the pandemic and everything else. But holy mackerel, walking around in Swanee and looking at the warehouse, we are stacked to the gills. We have so much involuntary. It's fantastic.
Agreed.
I'm just so excited for this summer. It's going to be great. So everybody should just be geared up to go. But what in terms of qualifying products, all of our extremely popular KJs, the FS products, the hyperheats, pretty much almost all of the GLs, with just like one exception, the GSs that are coming down the road, they're all going to qualify handily. There's a couple of HM models that qualify as well, and then we're still updating our lists, but we're going to have a pretty big range of multi-zone systems in non-ducted combinations, and we're finishing up some of the last work associated with the ducted ratings, but we should have an array of a pretty good array of one-to-one and multi-zone ducted solutions. We're going to be so well positioned relative to our competitors. It's
awesome.
Wicked
That's
fun.
encouraging.
Yeah,
We're really fun.
Yeah.
Really excited for the inventory and
that
the
warehouse
products.
Yeah, that warehouse that you mentioned that's stacked to the gills. That's just one of three.
That's
They're all,
exactly right.
They're all full.
Yeah.
So
And there's so much
ready
more
to
on the
go.
way.
Yeah.
It's just after being in a situation where we're trying to work around constraints for so long, it's kind of exciting to get back on offense and just be prepared for just great sales opportunity and growth in the next coming years. It's going to be these are heavy heydays for heat pumps, and
awesome.
so anybody that's tuning in and thinking, "Hey, man, I'm in the heat pump industry," you're in the right place.
Yeah, you're in the right place.
This is great news for Mitsubishi.
Yeah, and these are all climate heat pumps.
Yes.
It's not just warm climates; it's all climates.
That's right. I sometimes when we're talking about cold climates, people think, "Oh gosh, you must be talking about Maine." And of course, or Michigan or someplace cold. And of course, it's true. I've been using Mitsubishi heat pumps for a number of years. I haven't used any backup heat whatsoever.
Nice.
Even when it was negative 20 this past February, it really wasn't a big deal. It worked. It was just fine. And but when you think of warmer places, they're still really good candidates for hyperheat technology. I mean, we look back a few years ago when Texas had such a serious issue with their grid. And, a big part of the problem in some regions of the country, there's more than 50% of the houses have electric resistance for their heat. So when it gets really cold down to the teens for those parts of the country, during a polar vortex or whatever is coming through, it really puts a strain on the grid because all this electric resistance gets lit up. Well, what if all those homes had a 1-to-1 FS in those houses, that would do hyperheating? There'd be no need for electric resistance. Nobody would be freezing. And the electric consumption would be way lower. I mean, we can solve grid problems with the application of heat pumps across the country. It's just a great opportunity to electrify, decarbonize, save people money, make them more comfortable. I mean, what's not to love?
Yeah, no, it's a great time.
So our future looks very good.
Yes, our future looks very good, and so does everybody's future. I mean, there's a lot of work ahead, what a great team. I'm so happy to be at Mitsubishi and work with so many incredibly talented and passionate people that are just completely engaged on prosperous communities and improving personalized comfort. It's
awesome.
just so exciting.
Yeah, it is. It is. So Dana, I'm the contractor. I'm an installer. I'm a service guy. I'm the sales guy for a company. I'm going to be talking to the homeowner. What's the one thing I can tell them now about the IRA, about the rebates, about the tax credits? What's the one important piece of information that I can share with them that's going to help them? Because at the end of the day, that's who we want to help.
Yeah. No, the pitch really should be at least for this year, should really be on the local, rebate incentives where they're applicable, but on the 25C tax credit, so 30% up to $2,000. If the consumer brings up, elevated incentives coming from the federal government, I'm going to get my $8,000, those are really going to be geared towards low-income homes. So if you have a customer who's, really low-income homeowner and they're trying to figure out how they're going to afford it and they're, receiving heating assistance or other things along those lines, okay, there's a good argument that they might want to postpone until such time as those rebates are announced. But they're going to be limited in their availability, and they really are going to be to low incomes primarily. There may be some state programs that also roll them out to moderate incomes up to 150% of median income, but it's going to be very limited. I mean, if you were to take the total category of everybody that would qualify for these, it'd be 75% of the population. But really the incentives are such that, you would pretty much, if you had the max incentive, you'd run out of them relatively quickly. So the number of households that are going to be able to take advantage of those is going to be limited. It's going to be super help for anybody that's able to receive it. But from a sales perspective for 2023, totally focus on the tax credits. Don't worry about those rebates. When we know what they look like, we are going to get that information out.
No
tax
doubt.
credits.
And we'll get that out, and our area sales managers will get that out. The distributors will get that out. We'll get it to the contractors, so we'll be sharing it as we get it.
Absolutely.
All right. Nice. So anything else, Dana? Any parting words?
I just, I think I want to just express how grateful I am to all the hard work of the contractors that are out there. I know that, going out every day and figuring out how you're going to meet payroll and help people and do quality work, that's a labor of love. It's a lot to it. Getting your guys trained up on new equipment and keeping up to date on all of these, very complicated issues. My hat's off to you. It's a lot of work. We cannot do what we do without what you do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you so much for everything you do, and just know that we're thinking of you, and we're doing everything we can to assist in the things that make your life easier.
All right, so thank you. So let's focus on the tax credits for this year. When we get more information, I'm sure, Juan, we'll have another show on that as the information comes up. We'll probably have shows on the new refrigerants as things get finalized.
Absolutely. Things are moving,
It's an exciting time to be in the business.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on.
Thank
Really
you for
appreciate
Dana,
it.
welcome.
Appreciate it.
Big fan.
This is great. All right, everyone, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you in the next podcast.
All right. So
We'll see you.
all right, bye everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Hasta la vista, baby.
So Dana, is there a weather that you won't go sailing in?
Oh, yeah, good
Will you go
question.
sailing if it's 20 degrees out?
Well, I've gotten a lot softer, so, pretty much